Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first Mary Frances Early College of Education Educator Prep Workshop for the fall 2023 semester. My name is Sophia, and I'm joined by Katie, and we are student ambassadors of the College of Education. Student ambassadors serve as official host of the college. We are here to support you and your needs. As ambassadors, we plan events and initiatives that cater to the student group along the lines of professional development, recruitment, engagement, DEI, and community service. If you want to get involved, the undergraduate ambassador applications open every January, and information regarding the first Mary Frances College of Education Graduate Student Ambassador Program will go out this fall. Please reach out to either of us if you have any questions about the program or if there's anything you'd like to see from the student ambassadors this year.
The Mary Frances Early College of Education is proud to welcome today's guest speaker, Ty Cook. Ty is a current middle school science teacher and fellow dog, having graduated from the Terry School of Business in 2009 with a BBA in Finance, Bachelor's of Business Administration in Finance. After spending 5 years in the business world, he pursued his passion for education, obtaining a master's degree in secondary education from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. With a decade of teaching experience under his belt, Ty passionately shares his classroom journey through various platforms, including his blog, podcast, YouTube channel, and our personal favorites, Instagram and TikTok. His mission is to provide valuable tips, tricks, and engagement strategies to fellow educators and aspiring teachers just like us. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Cook.
Thank you guys for that introduction. Yeah, BBA, the business lingo is not something we're used to in the teaching world, right? We do have tons of acronyms though, because when I started teaching and I had to learn all of the alphabet of education, it definitely threw me for a loop. But yeah, I'm excited to be back. We did this again last year, and I was excited because as a UGA graduate, sadly, I didn't get to go to UGA for education, but I know that we have one of the best education programs in the United States. So go dogs. And I'm excited to talk to you guys tonight. And this kind of came out of us talking about what is relevant to teachers who are getting ready to enter the profession. And you guys are already navigating that, through student teaching. You see it on your own social media. But this is a topic that I feel like is very important to make sure that we're navigating it professionally, but also how can we confidently do it and get impact out of it for ourselves, but also for our students to leverage social media in a positive way to have a huge impact on our classroom. And so that's what I want to talk about tonight. And in the chat, I dropped a Google form. So if you're here or when you join, fill out the Google form. It's just a few survey questions to kind of give me a better idea to get to know y'all. In teaching, we learn all about assessing our students. So I want to get a pre-assessment of where are y'all on social media? Where are you consuming it? Where would you like to be posting as a teacher? Or what is an area of interest that you would like to learn more about tonight? Kind of see what I should lean into. And then also, if you have any questions for me as well, we can look at those and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. But of course, anytime you feel free to drop in the Q&A box and we'll chime in with those. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, I'm going to wait and give everybody just a second, and I'm going to take a look at the responses from the Google form as we get started. Okay, I like some of the word answers. Word answers give me a lot of information as to how we're feeling. I feel like when I was getting my master's, it was a different experience because I went back as a second career teacher, and it wasn't that undergraduate experience that you're getting. So I never really know exactly what you guys have experience with as an undergrad, but I heard literally this much about social media and how to use it. In fact, when it was brought up as a topic of conversation at UTC in the student teaching experience, it was don't do it, off limits, bad, horrible, the end of the conversation. That was really the extent of it. So it was like, have your own private social media, be super careful. There was no conversation as how to navigate as a teacher. And we know out there online, we've got teachers doing that on all platforms. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. But before I do that, I wanted to introduce myself and give you guys a little background on me. So, like they said, I am a UGA graduate. I'm a second career teacher. I've been teaching now for 10 years, which is hard to believe, but this is my 10th year. And I'm teaching 6th and 7th grade gifted or horizon science, depending on what you call it, which is like an advanced science content. And I am in Northwest Georgia, just outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So we sit like right on the border of the state. So I cross the state line to go into Georgia. And it's really interesting to live on a state border because you realize how different education systems can be from one state to the next. Our standards are different. The public school system is very different in one state to the next, which is why I choose to teach over the state line in Georgia. But that's also where I went to school and grew up as well, in the county that I teach in. I was a finance major and a business graduate before, and I always wanted to be a teacher growing up. But I will tell you the reason that I didn't, every teacher in high school told me financially, they told me not to be a teacher. And I was like, I listened to that advice over and over because I really wasn't 100% sure. Like, I'm not one of those people who knew exactly what they wanted to be, and I wish I had. But after I worked in the business world for a few years, I realized that there was no passion in what I was doing. If I didn't come to work the next day, or I decided that I was going to quit, or I got fired, I knew that I was replaceable. And the job that I was doing really was just that. They could find somebody else to do it and the world would go on. And I felt like I wasn't really making a difference. And that was the thing about teaching for me, is I wanted to do something that actually fulfilled me and brought me passion. And I love students and interacting with them. And so that's what led me to go back to school to become a teacher. And so I went and got my master's in secondary education. And then I've gotten my specialist since. But one thing I like to talk about on social media with new teachers is my journey to the classroom took about a year after getting my master's. And I actually could not find a job to save my life. At the time that I was entering the workforce, teaching positions were very few and far between. So the good thing now today is that is a little different. There's a little bit more out there in the market. But I wanted to teach social studies, which did not happen because where I live, they're all reserved for coaches. And I am not a coach and I'm not an experienced coach. So I ended up finding a job in science, and it was through some long-term subbing, and one thing led to the next, But I did not have a science background whatsoever. Like, y'all, when I was at UGA, I had to take 2 science electives as a business major. And so I chose to take marine biology and lifestyles of the big and famous in the late Cretaceous because I heard it was an easy A. And that is seriously my science electives and background in college. So when I became a science teacher, I had to go back and relearn this and be uncomfortable. But I also was reminded how much I loved science in middle school. And it kind of fell off in high school because I had some teachers that were not very inspiring. It was not engaging. And it made me think that I didn't love science, but I did. And I think that's the power of a teacher, is that we can make students either love or not love a certain subject area. And that's our opportunity. And so one thing I always say to new teachers out there is, on your journey, you may have like a set focus, like I want to be 3rd grade, I want to be kindergarten, or I want to be math or ELA. But really be open to it in those first years, because sometimes I've heard so many people talk about how they were led somewhere they didn't ever see in undergrad. And that's something that I wish I had thought about too as well. But these are my 2 puppies that I was talking about earlier, Alfie and Ivy, that I just got this summer. So I have been in the midst of puppyhood as a parent. And these are my parents. I like to share on social media my passions, and with my students in my classroom. I share a lot about travel. I've got photos all over my classroom. And it's always so amazing because I went to South Korea this summer. And on the first day of school, I put up new photos like from my trips. And immediately students come up to my desk and they're like, "You went to Korea? Like, my great grandmother is half Korean," or, whatever it may be that it relates to them. And it's always just a good reminder that us outside of the classroom can be such a great connector in the classroom, because we're not just cogs in a machine or Keebler elves that live at the school like my students think, but it's the personality that can connect us to them. And that to me is what social media does for me. Like my students know more about me because of my social media, and it allows us to connect on levels that weren't possible before in my classroom. Oh, at my school, we are heavily in the Ron Clark Academy house system. And so that's been a big part of our school. And it's been a great community builder for us and something that we're super passionate about. But my teaching philosophy is something that kind of was a lesson from my first year in teaching. And it is that students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I remember my first year, I was so concerned with content, like because I'm not a science person, right? That was like my insecurity. I've got to know all the answers. I have to be an expert. I have to know everything for my students. And the reality is I focused so much on that in the beginning that I would find that they weren't relating to me. We weren't building relationships. We weren't connecting because I was just drilling into content only and having to be an expert. And the reality is my students didn't need me to be a perfect expert in 7th grade. What they needed was somebody who taught life science, but was actually like a human being in the room connecting with them. And so when I stopped worrying so much about being perfect as a teacher and I started allowing myself to have moments to connect with them, I started to realize that everything else became better. And that was kind of the shift I saw, that I've got to always put relationships first, even if there's so much content that you have to get through in the year. And I see a lot of teachers in my building and in general stress so much about the standards and the test, and they forget that along the way, if you don't, y'all know, you're in college, if you don't like your professor, if you don't like your teacher, you're way less likely to be paying attention in class. You're sitting on your computer. We know what you're doing on your Mac or whatever they let you do. Like, you're not paying attention. You're not engaged, because the second you have that teacher that makes you want to listen and makes you think that they want to be there and they're enjoying you being there, that's when you're going to really be engaged and invested. So I always say when people say that I'm an influencer, it's a weird term to me because we're teachers who happen to be influencers. And we know that influencer has like a negative connotation mostly. But I always say I'm an accidental influencer because I had literally zero intentions of becoming an influencer or selling on Teachers Pay Teachers or being on TikTok. But the teacher across the hall from me that you can see here, Kyla, she was my teacher bestie across the hall. And y'all, rule number one in teaching, find your teacher bestie when you get to your new school. You know, find the people that you don't need to be around, and then find the one person who's going to make you laugh and make you just have fun on the worst day ever, because those are the people that are going to make going to work worth it. But one day Kyla came to me and said, we've got to start teacher Instagram accounts. And I said, what does that mean? And she's like, teacher Instagram, you know, like teachers on Instagram. And I was like, no, I don't know what that means, because I don't follow any teachers. I just follow real people in real life. And so within 24 hours, she was like, no, we're going to like create an account that's only for teaching. So instead of sharing it on our personal account, we can connect with just teachers. And that was kind of in the early days of Instagram for teachers. And that just became a platform where I started sharing what I was doing in my classroom. And it slowly took off. But what I realized is that it allowed me to learn and like expand my network, because in our school buildings, we are literally just in a PLC, you know, a group with these science teachers or this middle school group. And whatever information we don't know, whatever websites we haven't learned about, best practices, whatever other buzzwords, you know, you're limited. But the second that you expand and step out to Twitter or Facebook or TikTok or blogs or whatever it may be where you love to consume content, that's where you can really start to learn. And to me, I view social media, when used effectively, as an extension of your PLC, meaning that we break down the barriers from your school or your state or even your country, and we start to look at countries around the world. What are educational systems doing in New Zealand, in Finland, wherever it may be? And we're allowed to learn and also incorporate those ideas in my classroom. And so that's, to me, the best part of leveraging that network, is finding people that you can connect with and share ideas with. Another thing I want to talk about, recently on TikTok, a new teacher said to me that she wanted to start a social media account. And for anybody on here, if you're thinking about that, her question was, I'm a new teacher. I have nothing to share. And I said to her, actually, that's the exact opposite reason as to why you should be starting a new account. And it seems counterintuitive, but as a new teacher, you may think you don't need to be an expert. And that's the thing in the classroom. We don't need all the answers. What I learned when I started sharing on social media, I'll give you an example. I started sharing tech tips and I thought, I'm kind of tech savvy, but there's a lot that I don't know. And every time I shared a tech tip on Instagram, somebody came back with an even better tech tip, something I had never heard of. And I was like, wow. And then I would take that, incorporate it, and it would continue to snowball. But the same thing is true on social media. As a new teacher, you can be honest and say, I would love to get some ideas. Like, tell me some websites that you love. Give me a strategy that's going to help me with this behavior problem that I'm seeing in class, whatever it may be. But you don't need to be an expert to begin your social media journey as a teacher. And also, you don't have to be posting either. You could just be a consumer. So you get to choose what role you're playing on the internet. But the advantages that I've seen as far as social media goes for me in my classroom is, like I said, it expands our professional development opportunities. We can build relationships with other teachers, students, and families. Just the other day, a student came into me. I do lunch vlogs where I will, have my Stanley Cup and I make my whatever for lunch in the 25 minutes that I have, and I do it real quick. But what I've learned and what's interesting is it's connecting to people on social media because we all eat, right? My students are like, what'd you have for lunch? What are you cooking? What are you doing? And then a student came in the other day and she was like, my mom made your recipe. And I was like, oh yeah, which one? And I looked back and her mom was talking about how much they loved it. And it's just interesting because I forget sometimes that people I know in real life are watching my videos because I'm just used to it being strangers on the internet. But, those little pieces of you, most people don't know what their child's teacher ate for lunch. And I'm not saying that that's important, nor do they need to know that, but I'm saying it's everything. It's like they see when I do the cells wrap in class. They see when I'm, doing a lab or whatever I'm putting on social media. And where this becomes a really important thing is we all know that some parents can be less than positive with teachers and how they perceive us. So what I feel like social media can do for you is when they see on the news all the negative about teachers, they know what Sophia or Katie did that day in class, and they know what type of teacher they are. And when they see that day in and day out, what's going to happen one day is one day your child's going to have maybe an off day. Maybe they don't like you that day, me as the teacher, or maybe I made them mad or they failed a quiz. When they come home and have that conversation with that parent knows me and they know they can reach out to me and say, hey, she struggled today on the quiz, or hey, she said this thing happened in class. And they approach how they approach me differently because they're seeing me every day. But when you don't know that child's teacher and you never see them and y'all don't really get to meet, it's easy for that parent to send you the nasty email instead of the respectful, polite, assuming best intent email. And that's where I see a huge difference. Y'all, me and the teacher beside me at the last school, we taught the same thing. We had the same syllabus. Everything was exactly the same. But we had different experiences as far as how the parents interacted with us. And for me, the only thing I could ever really figure out was that parents saw me and knew me. And I feel like, so that's a big benefit. And also sometimes on Monday, my students will come into class and they'll ask me and comment on what I did that weekend, and we relate over that. So it's just another relationship builder as well. I think a big benefit to social media is that we can advocate for our students and as a profession. I've been connected with the NEA and I've been advocating for our union in the state of Georgia, things that matter to us as teachers that are going to impact y'all in the profession coming up. And those are great things to be able to have a platform to spread awareness and to do, especially in our profession. So this is something right here I put important to remember. It could be called the negatives of social media. But one thing I want to stress right here, when I first got connected with the University of Georgia for this session, it was through the NEA and GAE, which is our union in the state of Georgia. So if you don't know GAE, you should. But we have two unions primarily in Georgia, and it's PAGE and GAE. They're essentially just different options of whichever union you'd like to be a member of. But they help protect us and keep us protected legally, which would include social media and all sorts of things in the classroom. And as a student and somebody going into this field, I cannot tell you how many teachers that are my age that have told me on Instagram that they don't have a union. And I'm like, that's not true. You do have a union. I'm a member of that union in the state that you live in and you teach in. So first and foremost, I want to say, know about your union and figure out which one you want to be in. Because in today's political climate, you really want to protect yourself. And also, I do want to say these are kind of some guidelines. But with GAE and NEA, I told them they have people that are legally equipped to give advice if anything happens. And that's really who we want to defer to when it comes to like specific questions and best practices. And they do have a lot of resources on their website as well, which would be a really great place to go if you're ever really wanting to know more or dive a little bit deeper. But these are just some things that I would keep in mind. When you're posting as a teacher, whether it be publicly or privately, one thing you should always really keep in mind, nothing is private. We all know that private does not exist on the internet or on your phone or anywhere because there always can be access to that. So we always want to remember that whether it's our private Facebook account, you've got so many friends on Facebook, somebody can take a picture or post that you do and they can send it to human resources. Definitely is true of a public account. And I'm a public account. So everything I post, I am okay with my superintendent, parents, students, everyone seeing it. And I try to navigate and just think if there's a question as to whether or not I think this should be posted or if it's going to get me in trouble, I don't post it. It's not worth it. And I have a social media class in first period as an elective with my students. And so often, I'll have them right now. They're doing a video challenge where we're doing school expectations and they're doing like the cafeteria, the hallway, what's the rules in these areas? And they have to create a TikTok trending sound and video to make students learn about that area and what are the rules to kind of, get them to be creative. And they always want to use a sound that's got inappropriate language, or they want to use things where I'm like, guys, we represent the school. But they're like, this would be so good. And I'm like, that's the challenge with being a public figure, a teacher representing the school, is that we don't have the freedom to post every nasty thing we see on TikTok. There's a lot of sounds I would love to use that are trending, that are great, but I can't because I'm a teacher. And so it does limit what you do. But I do not share specific information about my students or families. So we really want to be sure to adhere to FERPA, which I'll go into in the next slide. So I really don't show students' work, their names on papers. I don't show their faces. The caveat to that is I do have one or two teachers' children who've signed like a release in my classroom and they work for the school. But that is like the only, and honestly, I probably shouldn't do that. But your school's social media, this is one important thing that a lot of people are confused on. Your school will have a release form for social media for the school. So that means, can they be featured on the morning news? What about we live stream on YouTube our morning news? What if we were to put them in the newspaper or whatever? That never extends to your personal social media, ever. So it may seem like a blanket, but that's for the school. So when it comes to your personal social media, that is not included. So just keep that in mind. So when you're showing your classroom, I feel like a lot of people think they need to show their students doing a lesson, or they want to show like, look at my amazing students. And it's always positive. It's never with an ill intent that you would show your students. They're your family, but you can't. And so you got to find creative ways to show your classroom, explain the lesson, do it without violating their privacy. And that's their digital footprint that we have to kind of keep in mind. I don't show my school's name or logo on my teacher badge. I've covered it so that it's not accidentally in the video. I close my classroom windows in videos almost all the time, so you can't tell where I'm located in the school. And, with everything in today's age, the safer you can be, the better. One of the best things I think that we can do in our social media is to model for students. You can navigate it without cussing. You can navigate it without doing negative things, and you can still have a following. My students ask me, and of course I should take this as an insult, but I don't. They're like, how do you have so many followers? Did you buy your followers? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, I don't understand, why does a teacher have so many followers? And I'm like, because you don't have to be the type of people that y'all are following, like the people that are pranking people on YouTube, or they're just following crazy stuff. And I'm like, guys, there are actually people that post normal, positive things that don't violate these rules that can have a following, but I don't think they get a lot of examples of that. So they can't even fathom, why would people want to follow a teacher? And I'm like, well, there's 3 million teachers in this country, first and foremost, and we're always trying to learn and expand outside of school. So FERPA is right here, and that was what I was referring to with just not violating your students' privacy. And it's the law that was created, which extends to social media and, of course, includes disclosing identifiable information about your students. So that would definitely be something you would want to look into if you're looking into your own social media. So a couple of things. One thing, a teacher in my building asked me, he's like, I'm really interested in starting my own social media, but how do you navigate it? How do you handle the comments, the negativity, the feedback? He also was just in general, I guess. And I think the biggest thing I see with social media is you got to be open to feedback. And the same thing is true as teaching, guys. When you're in the classroom, the amount of bullying that happens to me as a teacher on a daily basis in middle school is nonstop. And of course, they're just joking with me, but they're ribbing me about every single solitary thing. And on the internet, the same thing is obviously going to happen. But one thing that we have to navigate on social media is we have to be open to doing something that is wrong, that we didn't expect to impact people that way, whether it be cultural appropriation. Intent versus impact is a big thing on Instagram that was talked about with teachers. Sometimes we don't intend things to offend people, but they do. And we have to take into consideration where it lands, and also be okay with learning. And when we know better, we do better. And I think that with a lot of teachers and people on social media, they have a hard time saying, I was wrong. Even though you didn't mean to be wrong, you were wrong. And it's okay to do that and to learn from it. Some of the best lessons that I've learned through social media, representation, making an inclusive classroom space, and making sure that everybody's represented, not just in your classroom. But one of the things I went to Get Your Teach On, which is a teacher social media-ish conference, but they have real learning that goes on there. And one of the amazing presenters, Lanisha Tab, hers is a social studies session, and I went to it, and it really kind of shook me, because my textbook, I was thinking about, who are the people that we present to our students, and do they see themselves in it? Now, in an English class, we might have different authors, characters that are represented, but in science, what I realized in my textbook and in my state standards, the only scientists that we cover that are required to be covered are white. They're white, and they're old, and they're men. And that is it. There was no female. There's no diversity. And the reality is, one day, so when I came back from this conference, and it really stopped me in my tracks, because state standards told me what I had to cover, but state standards never tell you that that's the only thing you're allowed to cover. I'm supposed to teach genetics, right? So we're teaching students how traits get passed down, Punnett squares, all the fun stuff. So the next day in class for my warm-up, what I did is I asked my students as the warm-up to research a female or diverse geneticist and what their contribution to genetics was. That was it. That was the warm-up. You pick what you want to do. Y'all, the amount of students that ran up to my desk, warm-ups are typically, we're just getting them going. It's just that I need them to get going while I'm getting going. They usually just do it, close their book. They like ran up to my desk. And the reason why they ran up to my desk is because these are scientists that made contributions. It took them no time to find them. They're not in our book, but yet they made these important contributions, and they're scientists that represent them. And that was something that I was missing, and it still is missing in the textbooks that are here today. There's no diversity in the textbook. But that doesn't mean that I can't go outside of that and I can choose to bring those people in. And I learned about a website called imascientist.info, and it is a great series where they teach students about different jobs, occupations that they could explore as a scientist. Also, it's of course representing different scientists from all walks of life. And those are just great things that I've learned from social media that I don't know if I was stuck in my little corner in Northwest Georgia, if I would have had that network to stop and get me to think about that. So I'm definitely grateful for that. Okay, moving on to advice for new teachers. Of course, we've already talked about FERPA, making sure you're professional. Seek out positive influences on social media. I find your experience is curated by you. So if you open your feed and you don't like it and it makes you feel a certain way, well, you need to change it. You need to unfollow, you need to mute, you need to seek out some better influences on you. But I seek out people that are actually sharing real ideas. I want to see in their content that they're giving me new stuff, that they're positive, that they love education. I do not put out negative stuff typically when I'm having a bad day, because what I've found is that when I put out a negative video, I get all negativity back in my DMs. They're like, oh my God, me too. And they complain. And it doesn't really help me as a teacher to stay in a negative space. So I try to share positively on social media. And then, of course, use GAE or your union as a resource. Okay, so I want to move on to like different platforms and content. And I was looking, let me look back at the questionnaire. All right, so it says, my university program has adequately prepared me to navigate using social media as a teacher. 100% of you answered neutral, which is not bad. It's not, mine would have been strongly disagree, but we're kind of neutral on that. We've had discussions and learned about in class how we can effectively utilize social media to positively impact our future classrooms. Seems like a mix, although over half of y'all strongly disagree or disagree. All right, it looks like we got a mix of people entering high school, middle school, and elementary school. I'm curious to see where y'all consume social media, because y'all are, wait, are we considered, what is it? Are y'all considered Gen Z? Yes. Where does Gen Z cut off? Because I don't know. I don't know. Anybody? It's weird that we're in generations and we don't even know. Wow. More of y'all consume on Instagram than what I was expecting. What's funny to me is where my students consume content. My sixth graders consume YouTube and YouTube Shorts only. And my seventh graders kind of transition into TikTok and Instagram a little bit. So it's interesting to see how different ages consume content. Okay, which platform are you most interested in learning more about? Most people clicked TikTok, followed by Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers. And what area would you most like to learn about in terms of content creation? The number one was the do's and don'ts of social media, followed by creating Teachers Pay Teachers. Okay, what words best describe how you feel? Y'all said trepidatious, exciting, skeptical, better safe than sorry, and scary. And that's kind of what I would expect. You know, most people are very cautious, concerned. We haven't heard a lot of positive things about it typically. But I want to talk about some of the positives to help kind of create that balance, because it's not all negative. And especially when we navigate it professionally and do it the right way, there should be a category for generation. I'm a millennial. Yes, I'm a millennial also. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that have positively happened from social media as a result in my classroom. One of the things that is absolutely amazing, y'all, is, and I should have put a poll in here. Um, I'm always curious. I know that y'all have probably seen on social media, Amazon wish lists have become a huge thing. That's a very common part of going back to school. It's not revolutionary, but it seems to be gaining a lot more popularity. An Amazon wish list is a great way to get what you need for your classroom, especially if it's underfunded. And I will say that your personal social media can be just as useful as this teacher social media because people in real life want to help you succeed in your classroom. But I find so often one weird thing to me is that some teachers feel guilty asking other people for help. And I think that is so crazy because we are helping other people's children. They are their children. It's the community's children. So I think it's completely acceptable to reach out to businesses, to reach out on social media and advocate for your classroom. That is not you. You are not receiving that money or those gifts. So you need to, if that's what you got to do, you can do it and you shouldn't feel guilty about it. DonorsChoose.org is absolutely phenomenal to fund classroom projects. And one thing that's great about Donors Choose is that they're the intermediary, which means that that person that donates to your classroom knows that the money will purchase the product and it will go to your school. And so they can know for certainty that that money is going directly to your classroom. Another thing I like about DonorsChoose.org is that I get emails all the time. It's like a teacher in your community just posted a project. And so it gives people the ability to connect teachers if they want to help out a classroom. And I've gotten so many projects funded by DonorsChoose.org. I got a classroom cage for our rabbit when we first got a classroom pet. I had a lot of students on the spectrum that were really affected by the overhead lights at my last classroom. And I got cloud light covers that went inside of the overhead lights, and it created this dulling effect that really helped them because they had like sensory overload. And that was $600, guys, in 24 hours. And this is before my teacher stuff. This was just personal social media. In 24 hours, $600 was funded, and we had the classroom light covers. So you really will be surprised by what you can do by leveraging either your personal social media or professional. We've been able to connect with guest speakers, and that's been a really fun thing. We've connected with teachers in classrooms around the world. There was a teacher from Australia. We live streamed our rabbit when it had babies on YouTube. And we also did a hatch cam when we were hatching eggs. And teachers on Instagram were letting their elementary students watch, and they were interacting and learning. And this Australian teacher connected with our classroom. And here, my students in Northwest Georgia were now connected with a classroom around the world in Melbourne, Australia. And, those are just opportunities that really open yourself up when you're connecting with teachers around the world. And petsintheclassroom.org, if you're an animal lover and you would like a pet in your classroom, they give out grants and they're almost awarded like the second you apply, but they partner with Petco and PetSmart, and they will help you fund purchasing the pet and also the enclosure. And then they have a continuing grant where you can get supplies. And pets in my classroom have been a great way to help students, especially our students who struggle behaviorally, emotionally. I have 2 guinea pigs in my classroom as we speak, and I've had all sorts of things over the years. All right, so on social media, I've kind of branched out. I started with Instagram, and then my students got me to download TikTok. They would harass me every day. And finally, at the end of the school year, the teacher and I were like, okay, we're on a field trip. We'll download it. We'll try it. They taught us how to use it because we were clueless. And that's how I started doing TikTok. And again, I learned that was the best way to connect with them because they thought it was so cool, and they just wanted us to film a TikTok or to do one with them or whatever it may be. But that kind of progression led to YouTube and all these other sorts of things because I started seeing other teachers posting YouTube videos and teachers pay teachers products, which a lot of y'all mentioned wanting to learn about. But on YouTube, what I think is different on YouTube and I love is that I started posting student lessons during the pandemic. And y'all, they take a while to make. YouTube is probably my least favorite platform because making a long form video is exhausting. Being on camera for that long, editing for that long, and keeping people's attention. But the benefit to YouTube is people get to know you on a deeper level. And a lot of younger people, I'm assuming y'all too, I don't really consume content on YouTube, but they do. And so my students, I will post lessons. I've got lessons where I narrate cell organelles. That's what we're learning about right now. And I created these lessons during the pandemic when we were virtual, but it is amazing what a great resource these videos are now, because I have students who are absent, I send them the video. I have parents who say, hey, my student's struggling with cell organelles. How can I help them study? I send them the video. So these things that you're doing for social media can be multi-purpose and really positively impact your instruction in the classroom. I do a lot of tech tutorials, classroom design and organization. Classroom management is a big thing that I like to focus on too, because classroom management is a hard thing as a new teacher to navigate, because a lot of it is trial and error and it's learning by doing. But I think the biggest benefit to YouTube for me, and you can't see it in the screenshot, is those lessons for students and as far as the classroom is concerned. Okay, I'm hoping everybody knows about this by now, but y'all, Canva for Education, Canva was free for educators starting in the pandemic, but now they have Canva for Education, which is even better, and it's free for all teachers. And y'all, my students use Canva, I use Canva. It is one of the greatest tools as a teacher, a social media influencer, and y'all probably use it all the time. But this is such a good tool for content creation and creating lessons. My students edit in Canva for our social media class, and I love all the features that it has. There's social media templates. If you don't know how to make an Instagram reel, if you want a format, I don't know, I'll always go look at their templates, and sometimes you don't even have to create it. It's created there for you. So Canva and the free account is absolutely phenomenal, and I use it personally and professionally. I edit all of my photos in Adobe Lightroom, and I use Splice or CapCut for editing videos. So everything I do on social media is on my phone. And most adults that reach out to me are like, what YouTube camera did you buy for $700? And I'm like, I don't have anything. It's just this. You don't need anything else. And that really is the best thing, because you can capture content wherever you are and you can edit within the apps. So CapCut is free. I pay for the Splice. It's like $69 for a year, but I absolutely love it. Oh, one thing I do want to say is I caption everything that I make, and I'll tell you why. I had a couple of people DM me who followed me for quite a while, and they let me know I wasn't captioning my stuff, and they told me about family members that they had that could not access my content because I wasn't using captions. And I think it's important to be inclusive on social media. And one thing, not only are people who are hearing impaired not able to consume your content and learn and connect, but also 60% of people listen to social media without sound. I'm going to repeat that. At 60% of content that is consumed on social media has no sound turned on. So we're either on silent mode, maybe you're sitting in class and you don't want your professor to know that you're scrolling on TikTok, whatever it may be. I'm a teacher and I don't want my students to know that I'm scrolling. We're not listening to it with sound on. So you want to caption everything you do, or you're going to lose 60% of your audience. I use iMovie for YouTube videos, and you got to have a ring light. If you don't, you need to get one. Mine's right here off to the side. Because ring lights, my students in my social media class are like blown, their minds are blown. I'm like, guys, when I first got a ring light, I realized this is why people on the internet look more attractive than I look in my videos. It's the ring light. Like, that's it. It's the lighting. So make sure you have good lighting. If you don't have a ring light, film by a window. A window facing on you, those are the best videos. Okay, teachers pay teachers. I'm going to kind of quickly wrap up the last ones, but y'all, teachers pay teachers. Sometimes I don't like sharing numbers and money, but I also started Teachers Pay Teachers because I was at a conference and I met a Teachers Pay Teachers author, and they were like, Ty, you have to start uploading your lessons to TPT. I was like, what? Like, I did not, y'all. I'm a second career teacher. I had never heard of Teachers Pay Teachers. I had never purchased a product from Teachers Pay Teachers. And I was like, okay, I don't like, I'm going to work on that. But I was overwhelmed. She told me, she was like, Ty, it'll change your life. Like, she had made lots and lots of money. And so I started uploading my products. And the first, I think one thing that's important, whether you're doing social media or TPT or YouTube, I think it's easy to be like so overwhelmed that you're like, I can't do this. I can't start. I was like, you know what? That's enough. I'm going to upload one product. If it's not good, that's fine. I'm going to work. I'm going to improve it. And I'm going to just keep going. And slowly I started adding my products to my store and creating them. I just use PowerPoint or Canva to create products. And my goal is to make products that teachers can use, that they don't have to prepare because we're all busy, and that they have crystal clear instructions. And I've probably done Teachers Pay Teachers for 5 years. And the first year I made like $60. And I was like, wow, $60, that's great. The second year I made maybe $1,000. And the second year or the third year I made $12,000. And then it went up, and it keeps going up every single year. And as a teacher, a lot of times people don't like to talk about money, but teachers have side hustles. I'm sure most of the teachers at my school, they all have second jobs. Teachers Pay Teachers is a great side hustle because it's enhancing what you do in the classroom. When I make a cool product for Teachers Pay Teachers, my students are getting to have that great lesson in class. And what I didn't intend, because I'm like, oh, people are buying this, it is such an amazing thing to see other students in other people's classrooms doing your lesson and loving it. And so Teachers Pay Teachers to me is not only about money, but like if you are passionate and you have great ideas and you can put them together on Teachers Pay Teachers, guys, y'all can reach students that aren't even physically in your classrooms. And that means that your impact as a teacher is that much greater. And that is an amazing thing to be able to do, but also money. It's not bad. Yeah, there's a lot of other ways. One thing I was curious, I think a lot of when we think of an influencer, we think of affiliate marketing, meaning that people are linking products. And in education, guys, that is true too. I do Amazon affiliate, so I link items in my classroom. That's available to anybody out there on the internet. You can do it sitting at home. You don't have to have an influencer account. And you can generate income based on stuff you're linking in your classroom. It could be in your house. It could be your cute outfits, your fit check for the day, going to class. TikTok Shop just launched this week, which I've been getting into. And I've been linking Stanley Cups and random things for the classroom. And there's a lot of opportunities for you as an influencer to make a more comfortable living as a teacher. So I would highly recommend finding out. Etsy is another big one. If you're an Etsy girl, I'm not creative enough to be on Etsy, but if you are, there's so many different teacher side hustles. And what I love about, guys, social media, I have teachers at school that they leave school and they go and work at the mall for like $12 an hour, or they drive DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever it may be. What I love about my side hustle, I get to be at home. I can be on vacation. I can do it from the comfort of wherever I want. And I get to be my own boss in my side hustle and not physically be somewhere after school when I'm exhausted. And it's also a side hustle that is enhancing what I do in the classroom. So those are some of my. Gen Z is 1997 to 2012. 1990. Wow. Wait. To 2012. What's after 2000? What's after 2012? What's the next generation called? Okay, Gen X is 1965 to 1980, which comes after baby boomers. Aren't y'all also called the forgotten generation? Because baby boomers, everybody's like, oh, it's all about baby boomers. And then it was us, the millennials, who ruined everything, allegedly. And then Gen Z, which replaced us. Thank you. All right. So I'm curious, as we've got just a couple minutes left, I would love to know if y'all have any questions for me, if you want to ask things that you would like talked about before we wrap it up, because I know that you guys have had a long day at school, and I'm sure you're ready to go and enjoy your night. Gen Alpha. Oh, Alpha. I feel like that's a little unfair. That sounds impressive. Gen Alpha. I guess we've reached the end of the alphabet, so we've got to start over. Yeah. So to recap, while I'm waiting to see if anyone has questions, don't be afraid of social media as a new teacher. Do proceed with caution and professionalism and doing your due diligence. But y'all, whether it just be for fun or for a side hustle or for money or for learning or for networking, social media can be such a powerful tool for you in your classroom, and it can impact you as a person, it can impact you as a teacher, and it can absolutely impact you financially, and it just provides you with some other outlets. And for me, I've had bad days in the classroom where I go on social media, and that network outside, the positivity, can really change my day. Sometimes it does the opposite, but most of the time it is a positive thing for me. So I hope that this was useful for y'all. And on social media, you can see up there, I go by Cook in the Classroom, and you can find me wherever on all the things except for Be Real, because I ain't got time. And I can't be real when I'm teaching, okay? But you can DM me on Instagram or email me, and I'm happy to answer questions. And I hope that you guys are taking away something from tonight, or at least learning a little bit more and piquing your curiosity. But you can follow me on social media and watch along and see on YouTube. And I would love to share with y'all if you have any questions that come up from this later, or if you're watching this not in the live stream and later back at home, feel free to reach out, and I'm always here. And go Dogs. And I will turn it back over to y'all.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Next month's workshop will take place in October with our guest speaker, Dr. Yvette Getch, University of South Alabama, who will be giving a talk on teaching students with chronic illnesses. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at MFECOE and read the weekly MFECOE Connection newsletter. They get your emails for updates on all the future events. You can also text at MFECOE to the number 81010 to get text updates. But I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and thank you all for joining.